Alright, here we go. Wow, excellent connection, even though I'm in the middle of uploading a video to YouTube. We'll see how this goes. Yeah, it's been a while. I've been really busy, and I had some interesting computer stuff happening. As always, it seems these days. Anyway, it's a pretty long story, but I might end up telling it in the chat here at some point. But first, I'm just getting everything set up so I can see what's going on. So this should just be more or less a normal YouTube Second Life Neotoy exploring stream. Just gonna click on some random sims. After last session, I kind of felt like I kind of gwinned my stream, which this is an inside joke between me and my partner, but I think everyone who hears this story might benefit, so I'm gonna tell the story. It's one of those like kind of endearing stories, I guess. Anyway, I'm a huge anime fan, of course. No big surprise there. But my partner's not quite as into anime as I am, but I kind of got her into it a little, just a little, not like to the fanatical level. I'm not an otaku or anything like that, but let's try squirts. Alright, no access. So, yeah, of course, anytime you love something a lot, or really excited or passionate about it, you're gonna try to get your, like, closest associates, you know. Eden's Envy, this sounds good. So, I wouldn't say I tried really hard. I'm not like a flogger by any means. But I was like, oh, I'm watching these shows. I hope that, it's like flying is turned off. Of course, I'm right in the water. Classic Neo. Yeah, so I was like, oh, I'm watching these shows. You want to try them? And I don't know what I was watching at that time. I think I just finished something. It was a long time ago, and I was looking for new shows. And this show was airing at the time called Gwyn Saga. I think it's spelled kind of like Guin, I think, but so like I don't know if that's the right pronunciation. This is pretty cool so far. I like the Everglades. Let's do an eye in the sky kind of inspection. Looks pretty straightforward. Kind of a nice little homestead configuration. I'm gonna copy and paste this into the chat. Yeah, anyway, wow, how is everyone? I just launched right into my storytelling. I've got lots of stories to tell today and crazy mouth energy. I hope everyone's okay. It's been like day before yesterday. It looked like the apocalypse, like there was no day. It was just almost pitch black outside. Dark orange sky. Like, yeah, it was pretty intense. And it looks like we're in for more of that in the near future, too, with Oregon literally burning to the ground. Like, really unprecedented, but not unpredictable. Let me see. I just gotta turn down the master here. These waves are so loud. Yeah, anyway, like, really, really tragic. I feel a lot of things thinking about all those like 500,000 people who are in the evacuation zones right now, like having to get out of Oregon. That's some next level climate fuckery right there. So anyway, I hope everyone is more or less okay, all things considered. I mean, clearly we have a lot of other stuff going on. But back to the story at hand. This anime called Gwyn's Saga, right? And like one of the main characters is like this anthropomorphic tiger man, I guess. Anyway, we start watching it together, and we're like a few episodes in, I guess. and really, really enjoying it like a lot. Like a really exciting story, great characters, just like cool fantasy type world setting. Not like an Asaki like so many shows nowadays. There's some nice assets in this. That's pretty impressive. Nice assets in this on the sim. Hive, of course. Cozy kitchen. That's right. I feel very cozy. Ooh, waffle iron, nice. But I just love alchemy. Hands down, you will not find a better viewer for streaming. I think it's really fantastic. Ooh, I like this little hot plate too. That's cool. Dust bunny. Ugh. Open all the doors. Interesting. Yeah, so we're loving Gwyn Saga, and I don't know, we get like halfway through the first season, maybe, and then suddenly something happens. Something utterly momentous. And this is where the phrase that we came up with, Gwynd, comes from. The like spirit or the essence, the show just did a complete 180 like away from what it was. It went from being like this exciting adventure action fantasy show to becoming utterly just unbearably mired down in politics. Like it was hilarious actually, and you know why? I can tell you why this happened, because this is a real common occurrence in animes like that don't have really solid direction, and that is that they're following a manga, right, pretty closely. And manga, of course, the like written graphic novel format of anime is a completely different format. It's the idea of consuming it takes place in an entirely different frame of reference. It requires a different type of appreciation, atmosphere, everything. So it's just this radically different format, and that doesn't always translate if the production is like, well, we're just gonna do a straight up. That's a nice little detail there. Like, we're gonna just do a straight up adaptation, like practically frame for frame. We're gonna make the anime just like the manga, and it's like, hold up there. Like, you're taking like a novel and you're turning it into a video stream, and it doesn't always work. In fact, sometimes it really doesn't work, and that is sort of what happened with the Gwyn saga. It went from this exhilarating adventure magic show to just being like these boring, dreary, like backroom meetings and political intrigue between all of the main cast members, who were just like mired completely in the swamp of the political situation that was going on in the fantasy world. And so after we like stopped watching, because we tried to watch it a little bit longer, but no matter how hard we tried, it was just like the thrill was gone. The story was just no good anymore. It was boring. It was lifeless. I mean, who wants to watch like a show about board meetings, or the backroom politics of a medieval courtroom? And that was pretty much what it was. And so we just quit. We were like, okay, we just can't watch any more of this, and we stopped. And then after that, like, subconsciously, it just became like this meme. So like anytime we watched a show and it would like change dramatically like that, it go from exciting and interesting to overly political or just otherwise boring, we would say, oh, the show's been gwinned. So I don't know, kind of a dubious honor slash distinction, but also kind of cool that a show, in a way, had sort of like negaverse power of that magnitude that it could sort of coin a phrase and nutmeg, of course, and it could become like this catchphrase where we would say like, "Oh, this show's so bad, it's gotten gwinned." Uh, so yeah. Anyway, I felt like last week or whenever that was could have been a million years ago, given the state of the world right now. Um, I felt like I've been kind of gwinning the stream a little, like just getting too bogged down in like all these political minutia, nuance, and current events and stuff. Not that that I'm saying that's a bad thing, and I'm not gonna apologize. Like I apologize sometimes, but I don't feel like it's quite that severe at this point. Wow, this is a really nice bathroom here. With all these lanterns, I would totally get into that tub. All those suds. Just pretending I'm in there right now. I could probably it's probably fully scripted. No, weird. That's a shocker. It's not often that you find an unscripted bathtub in Second Life, at least in my experience. Especially not such a high-end looking bathtub. Really nice job on the decor and arrangement and stuff. These are all like AAA creators, of course. Cool architecture. I wonder who made this building. Actually, I'm curious. Scarlet Creative, Atlantic Gazer Prefab, creator nobody. It's not very useful. Anyway, look that up on the marketplace if you really want to know. Ugh, great, I'm lost in this 1,400 square foot building. But yeah, I don't want the stream to be dominated by politics or current events, honestly. I mean, occasionally maybe that's okay, depending on the gravity of the events, which admittedly the gravity was pretty intense lately, like the gravity of a neutron star, pretty much. Oh hey, a cute little kitty with everything going on, but I digress. I'm not gonna go into that right now. I just wanted to like say that I'm planning on not winning this episode. I have a far more interesting story to tell this week, which actually, no, spoiler alert, it's a totally uninteresting story, but I feel like I can tell it in a way that makes it vaguely interesting. Yeah, so anyway, I've been offline a lot for various reasons recently, mainly computer troubles, which were kind of like very like a lot of different problems. Like first I had a processor burnout, and then I was like rebuilding my computer, and my GPU, one of my graphics cards was having trouble. And anyway, it was just kind of interesting that it just kept, I was going in like waves where I would get my computer working and then some tragedy would occur and I would suddenly have to like take a few weeks off waiting for either like parts or what have you. The end result was that unless you made this Scarlet Creative main store, I was basically just getting really demoralized to the point where, like, especially since I'm super poor now, and I was like, I can't like, I can't spend $100 to like fix my computer. It's like, it's just, it's either that or eat, you know. So I was basically holding off and doing everything I could to like economize and buying like lower cost components and what have you. And it was getting to the point where I was like almost ready to throw in the towel. I was just like, if I have any more computer problems, I'm just that's it, I'm done. Like, no more workstation. It wasn't worth it for me. Because I'm working outside doing like forest management stuff, and it was just like, I don't need this. I don't need to get lost in computer land and spend all this money on these absurdly expensive components and stuff. Um, so yeah, it was kind of a touch and go there, and but I did eventually get like, I think what really shifted the balance was when I got this processor refunded, and I was like, well, that was just like they did me a solid there, and so like maybe I can go on, and so I I like put the new CPU in and rebuild my computer, and I was like, yay, this is the best, and I was streaming and everything was going fine, and it's a cool blanket. It's not even normal mapped, is it? It looks almost normal mapped, but it isn't. It's a very cozy looking blanket. Beautiful guitar too. I remember when instruments in Second Life were like a pretty rare thing to see, and like the quality was kind of hit or miss, but nowadays like there's just some fantastic musical instruments in Second Life. And yeah, so my computer was up and running again. I was like, great. It's like, hopefully this is it. Smooth sailing. And then I turned it on. Like, this was like, I don't know, 3-4 weeks after I'd rebuilt it completely, more or less, with like a new CPU and a new video card. And and it just like randomly turns off. Like, I was like, oh great. So I turn it back on, and it's fine for like, I don't know, like quite a while. It was a random kind of like intermittent sort of failure. It didn't really make any sense. I couldn't figure it out. Like, so I was like, oh great, here we go again. Like, what is it now? And since I'd replaced so many components recently, I was really at a loss. Like, could it be a new motherboard, or like, could it be the new motherboard? Could it be the new CPU that I just put in a couple weeks ago? Could the power supply be failing? Maybe the RAM. Like, I didn't know, and like, because of the problem is so intermittent and unpredictable. Like, sometimes it would run for 12 hours just fine, and then it would just randomly shut off. Other times it would act just like a thermal overload, and it would just like shut down, and then it wouldn't boot back up, and then after like 5 minutes it would boot back up, and then after half an hour it would shut off again. So like, it was one of those really hard to troubleshoot problems, and so I was like, okay, fine, I'm just gonna process of elimination this. Like, I mean, I built computers for like almost 2 decades, so I was in no way like an amateur. I'm like taking other components that I had laying around from old system builds and like swapping them out just to see like what could be the problem, like narrowing down the possibilities, what was failing, and I wasn't really getting much information back. It was like I would try swap out a component, and then it would run fine for a while, and then it would start failing again, and it was like, okay, so it's not that, and this took like over a period of like 2 weeks of maybe off and on, just kind of like screwing around with it when I felt like it. Corey Ito. I'm so glad that Corey Ito's like still making stuff in Second Life, because he just really like quality builds. Great architecture too. Oh, that's cool, like a subterranean cellar. Oh, that's really cool. Wow, someone had to do some neat terraforming. It's like a fallout shelter, kind of. That's pretty rad. Or like a wine cellar, I don't know. That's a cool build. So yeah, anyway, like, so I pretty much ruled out every single component in the whole computer except for the motherboard and the CPU, which was like my first guess. I was like, okay, it's probably the new CPU. Oh yeah, I forgot this. I recently uh, upgraded my uh, storage with one of those new M.2 solid state like drives that look kind of like a stick of RAM, but they like go right into your motherboard, which this is like the weirdest thing, honestly. I feel like that new memory or storage form factor is just so weird. It's like, and so unnecessary too. Like solid state drives that are like serial ATA. Anyway, there's a lot of stuff I could go into just about that specific thing. But anyway, the bottom line is I got one of those memory solid state drives, and I'd put it in like maybe a week before the problem started happening. So I was like, okay, that's gotta be it. That's the only thing I've changed since everything was running perfectly stably for quite a while. So that was the first thing I took out, and unsurprisingly, the computer still had this random shutdown problem. So it wasn't the M2. All right, I think I haven't seen everything on this sim, but honestly, aside from the landscaping and the quality of the assets, I'm not too like thrilled about it. So I think I'm gonna see if there's greener pastures. But that was Eden's Envy, which I don't know if you were really a resident of the Garden of Eden. I think you probably wouldn't be very envious of that sim, but maybe it has big shoes to fill. There's a lot of growing. Alright, Aurora K, let's try this. Very weird thumbnail there. Oh, this looks like a shop sim. But who knows? Oh no, it's like one of those racetrack sims. Maybe. We'll see. Yeah, anyway, so I took out the RAM. I took out the power supply. I took out the video card. I took out the M2. I took out the hard drives. Literally every single detachable component of my computer I took out except for the CPU, because like I was like, I just bought this motherboard. This is a brand new CPU. Probability's low that it's failing, but whatever. So anyway, even with all of that done, it was still having this problem. So I was like, okay, this is the worst case scenario. I didn't want to accept it, but it's either the CPU or the motherboard. So I was like, okay, there's one more thing I can try before I literally have to replace one of these brand new components. And that is to take out the CPU, reseat it, redo the thermal compound, because the problem was sort of indicative of a thermal overload, and I thought, maybe that's actually what's going on here, as improbable as that is, because it was a stock processor with a stock cooler already outfitted with thermal compound straight from AMD, so it wasn't like there should be any failure there. And it's not like I did anything weird when I was putting it in or attaching the heatsink. It really just was mind-boggling, but I thought, what do I have to lose? So I took out the CPU finally, and I cleaned it off like really well, cleaned all the thermal compound off with solvent, and made sure there wasn't any like thermal compound on the motherboard, and of course cleaned all the thermal compound off the heatsink as well. And then I was like, okay, I'm gonna re-thermal this thing. So I broke out my trusty little Ziploc bag of thermal compounds that were like literally like 12 years old. I think I figured it out, like some Arctic silver that I bought off of Newegg and like a really long time ago, and a couple of other random ones that I just gotten with various components that I'd ordered. So this is interesting. I have no idea where I am. What a Riders United. Yeah, so it is another like probably motorcycle club racetrack sim or whatever. Anyway, so yeah, so I like check my silver thermal little syringe, and I'm like, oh god, there's only enough left in here to just put the thinnest, lightest coating on the CPU. I was so like annoyed. I was like, man, I'm gonna have to get some more thermal compound, but I like squeezed it as hard as I could. I was like crushing it out of the little syringe, like getting every last particle of the compound out, and there was like just enough to cover about 3/4 of the CPU, and I was like, well, shit. And the worst part was, because it was like almost 15 years old, it was oh good, flying is not turned off, thank God. It was like desiccated a little, so it wasn't really spreading at all. And because I just used like mineral spirits to scour the surfaces of the CPU and the heatsink, like it really wasn't sticking. So I was like, great, more problems. I should have just got a new container of the thermal compound, but I was feeling stubborn and ornery at this point. So I had one other syringe of thermal compound that was just some rando generic thermal grease that I'd got with some other heatsink component that I bought a long time ago. Well, that's kind of interesting and creepy. And so I was like, okay, I will reintroduce some vigor into this silver particle thermal compound with this thermal grease from this other company. And so I squirted some on there, and I was slathering them together and mixing them on the CPU, which was kind of cool. And anyway, it was like exactly what the doctor ordered. It like totally reinvigorated the silver compound, and like in a matter of moments I had like a perfect, pristine, well mixed layer of thermal compound on the CPU. So I was like, great, at least that's checked off. Now all I have to do is put the heatsink back on and boot it up and see what happens. So I did that, and Faith and Begorra, it was like, I don't know what the difference was. Like, I reseated the CPU, maybe that was the problem all along, or maybe the thermal compound just wasn't working right for whatever reason. Anyway, it hasn't had a random reboot since, and everything essentially is exactly the way it was, except for me reseating the CPU. And I've been checking the temperatures, and they're actually like well above, or I should say well below what is considered to be sort of the optimal thermal load on the CPU. It's like 38 degrees, or yeah, 38 C, even under a relatively high load. So ironically, the silver thermal compound that was like 15 years old or whatever apparently has really high quality thermal conductivity despite being so old. But maybe mixing it with the other thermal grease had something to do with that. I don't know, but whatever, it's like performing better than average. So that's cool. And the real, of course, the best part is that there hasn't been any random shutdowns since I did that. So yeah, a happy ending to an otherwise grueling story. And like, oh my god, I have built so many computers in my life, and I've had so many problems with so many computers, and I've somehow managed to figure out almost every one of those problems and get to the bottom of why things are failing, but I still have no idea what was responsible for this particular random crashing phenomenon. But yeah, so moral of the story, like, if everything is failing and you just don't know why, try reseating your CPU. Like, I mean, I'd actually heard of people recommending that as a treatment, which was one of the reasons that I tried it. but I never actually thought it was gonna work. I was like, oh, this is just gonna be another headbanger, and I'm gonna wish I hadn't wasted that like 45 minutes that I spent. But it turned out to actually work, so there there really are miracles in this amazing world of ours. Wow, this is like what, the fourth one of these racetrack infinite up into the stratosphere sims that I've been to. Honestly, this one is a little less exciting than most that I've seen. And usually they go up about 1,000,000 miles, and then when you get to the very top, there's like a little outpost, but it can take quite a while to reach the top. One thing I will say that's cool about this one is it's a lot different than the other ones that I've been to. I suppose they're all subtly different. Classic sort of schema for these is themed layers. Like each layer that you go up, each layer of the course is themed in a specific way. Like there's usually like a volcanic one, or a forest, a rocky, like Arizona desert type one. This one's like a Japanese garden basically, which is pretty cool. Despite being a little bit disappointing. Oh, that's cool. There's like a little drawbridge here that you have to like jump over. Yeah, these are best enjoyed obviously in a vehicle traveling at high speed. But I like kind of flying up them too, is sort of fun. Oh, the Japanese garden one is pretty big. Oh yeah, there's usually like a sci-fi level. Nice thing about flying up these is you can go through all of the stages pretty quick if you're really paying attention and like chasing the openings. Here we go, the African savanna layer. I feel like I've seen this logo before too. Maybe this might even be one that I've, or associated with a group that has done these before. If anything, I feel like these are a golden opportunity for the sim architect to really like brush up on their landscaping abilities. God, I can't believe it. I'm flying at full speed, but I feel like I'm barely crawling like a snail because the scale of this is really quite extensive. Like, you could probably fit like 6, 7, maybe even 8 vehicles across the roadway, which I think that would be pretty fun to get like 7 of your friends and fly or drive up one of these courses. That's pretty cool. I like all these waterfalls. I'm just gonna sort of take a shortcut here because I think I've seen enough of the African savanna for now. Jungle, whatever. I gotta check my time here because I promised my partner I was only gonna stream for an hour. Let me see what I've got going on here so far. 33 minutes. Wow, we're barely into this. So yeah, anyway. So yeah, now we're in like the Arizona desert kind of section. You can buy these modular roadway segments on the marketplace and build your own race course as big or long as you want. I'm sure there's some kind of like system too available to assist with the building and the routing and stuff. Oh cool, it's like an Egyptian temple, Sahara Desert kind of phase. This is making me a little nostalgic because I actually have really good memories from the last one of these vertical race courses that I went up. And of course the coolest thing in my mind is like, this is something you could not have in real life. Well, I mean, you could actually. It would cost billions of dollars to build it, and it would probably be some kind of like construction nightmare. and eventually collapse, but it's a cool concept that I think it's neat that there are certain things that work best in the virtual world, and this is definitely one of them. And I hear we're in like the Wild West section of the race course. But it's always like a fun experience to thread your way along these courses flying. Although I inevitably get bored and take a little shortcut. One of these days, well, I don't know. I'm not like a fan of driving at all, so the idea of driving for fun or like doing racing games doesn't really appeal to me much, but one of these days I think I might just bite the bullet and buy like a cheap dirt bike or something off the marketplace and then ride up into one of these courses and just see what it's like to actually do the full experience. I talk about this all the time though, like I'm always talking about doing these experiences or or RPing. I haven't done it yet. I don't know if I ever will. Here's the urban version. This one's always very popular, the big city. God, it takes a long time to get up these layers. I'd say they're like, each one is probably about like not 4,000, what am I thinking, like 2,000 meters maybe, or maybe I'm thinking 400 meters, I think that's what I was thinking actually. So zombie out of that Valve game, a skeleton. Honestly, if I was making one of these racetracks, I would put a lot more time and effort into each level and make less levels, because it's kind of like yeah, it's cool that there's a million levels, but each one of these levels is like fairly mediocre. I don't know. On one hand, I guess you'd be driving really fast on the road, so you wouldn't really be like maybe enjoying the scenery as much. I mean, what would be really cool would be to create one of these tracks that was like super. Hey, Sess, nice to see you again. Hugs back, my friend. I think it would be really cool to have like a incredibly detailed one of these tracks with each layer like its own super complicated and highly articulated world. But then to have like a vehicle that drove really slowly through, kind of almost like a Disney ride or something, you know, like yeah, like those Disneyland or Disney World rides where you are stuck on one of those little pod cars that takes you through a like a miniature version of a country or whatever, you know. You know what I'm talking about. Getting lost. I wish there was a way to, like, there's, oh, this is cool. Oh, that's so cool. So yeah, you can look at the outside of these and see the themes for each one. That's cool. I've never seen that before. I was just gonna say it would be almost nice to have like a map so that you had an idea of what zones you were gonna go through, or I don't know. I don't really even know what I was thinking, but yeah, so fingers crossed with my computer. One thing that I found out that was interesting when I was reading some of the documentation of the thermal compounds is that it takes a while for them to like cure, which is really interesting to me. Like basically, if you think about it, it's really fascinating that there's this kind of like grease. Oh wow, this one's really well made. This looks like a, you know, like a reclaimed city after the apocalypse, like nature is returning. One of my favorite themes actually. And so there's like, you know, over 100 degrees Fahrenheit almost continuously, like some 120, 130. sometimes up to 200 degrees Fahrenheit of consistent temperature that is uh, pumping through this thermal compound, whatever it happens to be made of. There are many different varieties. And of course, that's going to bake some of the compounds out, and whatever's left behind is going to then have to bear the burden of that constant thermal load, which is kind of interesting. The chemistry, if you think about it, the design of those compounds, making sure that they don't eventually turn into an insulator if they've been baked for a certain amount of time, or eventually they just get so old that they start to fail, because heat is obviously a form of stress, and also a facilitator of chemical reactions. So it's something that you definitely have to be mindful of when you're designing these thermal compounds, and not all of them are good. Some, I mean, if you read reviews and stuff on Newegg or wherever, many of them have proprietary formulas that are prone to failure, or there's a lot of secrecy around them. This one's really cool. This one's my favorite so far. So you want to do your research before you get a specific thermal compound, and then of course you don't even really know how well it's working for a month or two, and then once it's cured or baked in and all the instability has been cooked out of it, then you will finally know how efficient and sustainable it is. So that's something I'm anxious about now. I'm a month from now, is my processor gonna start to have thermal stress? This is kind of a cool fantasy version of the racetrack. Incidentally, and this is totally unrelated but kind of fascinating, silver is the metal, the element, is the absolute best conductor of thermal energy in terms of metals. So the downside, of course, is that silver is really expensive. Well, not really expensive, but significantly more expensive than aluminum or copper. It is classified as a precious metal, and I don't even know what the price of silver is right now, but it's pretty high up there, and it would be prohibitively expensive, I think, for most companies to produce heat sinks out of solid silver. But if you were going to design and build heat sinks, making one out of solid silver would be the way to go in terms of the highest thermal, dissipation and efficiency. But the reason I was bringing that up is because back in the 90s, I think it was, late 90s, maybe mid-aughts, the fanatical PC building enthusiast community got really excited about the sort of latest generation of thermal compounds that you would use in the transition layer between the heat source and the heat sink. And the reason that these were so next level was because they basically had atomized molecular silver in the compound. So in that way, you're kind of getting the best of both worlds, because you're getting the economy of using just a tiny amount of silver, but you're getting the highest possible thermal efficiency. This is cool. I love how there's just a fully more or less furnished house way up in the middle of nowhere on this racetrack. It's pretty nice components too. Although these aren't scripted apparently. At one point I was actually this was when I was first getting into 3D printing. and I was in the process of building a computer, and I was like, why don't I design and 3D print my own heatsink in sterling silver? And this was a project that I pursued for approximately, like, I don't know, maybe like um, 8 or 10 hours of like a little bit of rough, sketchy design, and trying to figure out how much it would cost. Because at the time, you could get things printed in sterling silver, 3D printed. Of course, they weren't actually printed in silver; they were printed in wax, and then they were cast in silver. But I just thought that would be the coolest thing to have, like a solid silver um, heat sink on your CPU, like in terms of pimping out your computer, and it would be like, it would probably extend the life of the CPU by several years, because you're going to be like achieving the pinnacle of thermal dispersion with the CPU like that. And I wanted to do passive cooling, because like everybody knows how annoyingly loud a lot of CPU coolers are nowadays. Just like a real racket. And the idea of having a passively cooled CPU, which is where you basically just have a heat sink that is so large and so intricate and well designed that it is able to sink that 200 plus degrees of thermal energy without needing a fan to actually blow the heat away from the heat sink and keep everything cool. That's really kind of like the ideal kind of. This one's beautiful. It's kind of like a floating island, sort of like a. I don't know. It makes me think of Atlantis or something, even though it's not really. Oh wow! I just got booted out of the land. Ouch. Oh whatever, man. Oh, I got booted out, but I'm not actually out. I'm just down on the ground floor in the penalty box. So yeah, Sheba77 or whatever, you got neoed, man. It's too late. Anyway, insult to injury lands on his face. So yeah, that was Spirit Riders. Apparently they don't cotton to strangers inspecting their property. So yeah, Aurora K, that was kind of a cool little jaunt there. What do we have? We got like 13 minutes left. I don't know. I'm gonna roll the dice here and try another sim really quick. But yeah, anyway, like it turned out it was gonna cost like $300 to print like this heat sink that I designed out of solid silver, and I was like, I don't think I want to pay as much for the heat sink as I do for the CPU. As cool as it would have been, if I had like unlimited money, I think I still would have been kind of like, this is just stupid. Like, there's something to be said for economy as a function of efficiency. And yeah, and ethically, I feel like. All right, let's try pride. Ethically, I feel like there's a certain obligation, and this is just me, so like don't like feel like this is some kind of like a rule that everyone should live by any means. But for me personally, I feel an obligation to achieve the highest level of efficiency possible. That's a personal goal, I guess. Hashtag personal goals. Like that little like rattan coffee table. Whoa, what is going on up there? Let's see if I can fly up to the excitement up here. These are some really interesting looking panels. Let's see, there's kind of a problem though. If I can't get through the ceiling here, if there isn't a passage of some sort, I won't be able to see what's going on up there unless I can do a short range teleport. Like if there's a chair or something in here. Wow, someone built a whole city up on that platform. Alright, there's bound to be some object that I can sit on up here. Probably quite a few of them actually from the look of things. Alright, here we go. This might even work. Right, there we go. Alright, that was easy. Easy as pie. Alright, so I'm up in the clouds on this big layer, and I might as well put the landmark in the chat. Hey Liam. Alright, just looked over and saw the chat, but if you were joined earlier. How's it going, guys? I don't even know what day of the week it is. These fires have put me so, like, out of touch with reality. Like, I pretty much didn't even go outside the day before yesterday because it was like there was no day, you know. It was like pitch black. And of course you don't want to be breathing that air. Come on, you know, you can run faster than that. Oh, I came all the way up here to this giant floor and there's only one little table. Alright, I'm going outside. I want to take a look around the city. I should just probably eye in the sky it. I think I will first. This is clearly like a work in progress. I mean, that makes sense since there wasn't any way to like easily access it. Sea view, huh? Little amusement park. This looks kind of cool, actually. Kind of want to try out the attractions over here. Let's see. Alright, let's pick my spirit animal here. I don't see one, but I'm kind of a turtle, so there we go. That was nice and easy. I love it when you can just click on something and like immediately be transported there. Got a little distracted though. Wow, this thing is creepy. What is this? I'd be able to read this intimidating message if it would res. Here lies Count Poke, born to poke and reap all who ride. Oh, that sounds vaguely threatening. This is one of the best things about Second Life. Like, no matter what you think you know about what things are out there, where they might be, if you actually go to a sim and start poking around just like Count Poke, but no reaping, just poking, you can find like the craziest stuff out in the middle of nowhere. It actually reminds me of that story I told a while back about finding that bowling alley way out in the middle of the woods. Picked the one building I was already in. Looks like a dance club in here. Clearly, like, they're planning on deploying this at some point. I mean, they're putting a lot of effort into the landscaping and building all of the attractions and stuff. But it looks like they also have a long ways to go. Let's see, here's a high-rise, like an office building. If there's somewhere I could... yeah, this looks fun, actually. I want to see if I can ride the escalator. That's pretty cool. I wonder how that works. It almost looks like an animation. But I think it's actually, like physical. Let's see if it, oh, no. Too bad. There must be some kind of an animation happening there. It looks pretty realistic though, but yeah. Huh, probably just the texture on like stairs basically. Although no, they actually are changing position. I don't know why it doesn't affect my avatar for some reason. See if I can fly up to the very top of this building. And then look out from there and see if I can see the full extent of metropolis. So yeah, like the most of the buildings are just props basically that are used to create like the illusion of a skyline around a small nucleus of active structures, which is a pretty solid strategy if you're trying to create like a concentrated high detail sort of a illusory city. We got like a office building, an asylum, sort of the ghetto, and there's probably a residence because usually there's almost always a residence inside these sort of conceptual money-making builds. But it doesn't look like anyone actually lives here. Oh, this is the residential section, knows what this is. Maybe they're planning on like renting out these units at some point. Kind of like middle of the road level of quality. I don't know, it's hit or it's inconsistent. There's some of these units are really nice and some are kind of mediocre. So that kind of give you a sort of indication of the budget of the creator, I would imagine, because if they had unlimited funds, they'd be using top quality assets for every single structure instead of sort of a hodgepodge mix of different qualities. Look at this. This one, it looks like almost like a vintage prim building. Well, it's like a mixed prim and mesh. I like the diversity though. At least that's sort of like authentic. You know, most real cities, there's a lot of diversity of the structures, unless it's like a track home row or something. But each one of those houses is fairly unique, which is cool because a lot of times what I've noticed is with these sort of conceptual builds, the cityscapes, the architect will like buy one full perm really fancy house off the marketplace, like this for example, and then just clone it a whole bunch, kind of like this row here. Although as you can see, the numbers are different on each house, which is kind of a cool little detail. There's a mansion. I would expect the sim architect would actually like own one of these houses and have it like fully furnished, but impossible to say without trying to gather more information. Oh, there's a hotel. That's where I was in, and a welcome center. Okay, so here's like the index of all the businesses and stuff. This is a nice lobby room. The concierge is looking a little flat, but other than that... Alright, what am I at now? 58 minutes. Alright, I think I'm just gonna maybe call it a night with the stream. Thanks for watching. Stay safe as the most common vernacular is that's been tossing around right now. Like, yeah, it's a scary and exciting world out there right now, so I hope everybody gets through, and I'll see you guys next time probably. Take care. Neo out.